these technological shifts, including LPFM, including the internet, including UHF, the FM band, each one of these shifts has really been designed in part by the powers that be to take our eyes off the ball, which is actual control of the whole thing, right? It's really a very, very clever divide and conquer strategy, and I support all of these mediums and all of the people and all of the bloggers that participate and all of the micro broadcasters. But I'm just trying to get our eyes a little bit back on where we should be looking. That's all I'm trying to say. Yes.
All right. Well, first, I got a couple of questions. First off, what was the reason for this shift from analog to digital TV? And the other question I had is, you mentioned Robert McChesney. Have either of you guys been to the national conference?
We've been to every one.
We've
right.
spoken at several of them too.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. But what about the shift from
So the question is, what motivated the shift from analog to digital television? Well, the ostensive reason for the shift is that it was going to provide people with more programming choices, and that the quality of the television signal, the picture would be clearer, the sound would be better, and so forth. Right? So that this would provide consumers, and this is really the way it was framed, this would provide consumers, those in the passive viewing audience, with a better television experience. If you're asking me what the real motivation was, I think the telecommunications companies had a lot to do with it, because one of the things that's happened since the Telecom Act of 1996, right, which mandated this transition but didn't spell out any of the steps, didn't provide deadlines, all of that came with later legislation, is that cell phone usage in the United States exploded, and they were desperate for spectrum. So they've actually, Verizon, and who else? Verizon, is it AT&T? Verizon and AT&T have actually bought up billions of dollars already, bought the rights to some of this analog spectrum that's going to revert back to public use, right? It's going to be, that's being handed back by broadcasters. They've already bought up the rights to it because they need it, because they were running out of spectrum. So really, the big motive behind this is that AT&T and Verizon and all these telecommunications companies, they've been lobbying Congress to get some of this spectrum freed up because they need it, right, to add more customers.
And so they switched to digital TV, so that the space that was formerly being used for the analog TV can now be used for
among other things, for cell phones, for your PDAs, and also for wireless internet access, right? So that's
emergency responders.
And yes, some of it is being set aside for so-called emergency responders, for fire department and police use. But the vast majority of it is actually going to the big telecom companies. And they're the ones who spent the lion's share of the money to get this transition accelerated. They were the ones who were really angry. I don't know if you guys remember, but earlier this year, the DTV transition was delayed because so few people had the converter boxes that they needed to convert digital signals for their analog television sets. The U.S. Obama administration made, in my view, the wise choice to delay that transition by 3 months. And the telecom companies were the only people who were really protesting. Even at the end, even the National Association of Broadcasters sort of went along with it. But the telecom companies, they were pissed because it meant they had to wait 3 months to get access to that spectrum that they had already bid on and had already bought up. So that's my view of the real story behind the DTV conversion.
Understand that all of these other uses, and however this shell game goes on, what's used for this is pushed over here and changed into this kind of a frequency. Just, again, keep your eye on the P that's underneath, because what's going on is they're still not being taxed. They're still not paying anything for all of these different possible uses that we're giving this spectrum to them.
Sorry.
Yeah.
May I have your attention, please? The time is now 8:30. The library will be closing in 30 minutes. At this time, internet services and library card registration have now ended for the evening. Thank you.
Yeah, I think that it's really good to see that you are seeing that these are distractions. I mean, they are using all these, first the television to keep us. First it was religion, then it was television, and now it's portable phones and the internet. When I go to the internet, it's really hard to get the good information and up-to-date information. There were nuclear leaks in Spain. Did you hear it? There was the report that Obama ordered on the global warming was released about a month ago. Two reports, 190 pages and 190 pages. Both, especially the one on the United States, is predicting a terrible disaster here in the Midwest. And we don't have the food to supply the people and all that. Have you heard it? Have you seen it? And in the internet, in the media, nowhere. Nowhere. I asked everybody, nowhere it's to be seen. At the report presentation, there were reporters in one side of the room and scientists in the other. The reporters, about 30 of them, asked a lot of questions. And the presenter, Holdren, said, well, since all the reporters have a lot of questions, I assume that tomorrow this will be all over the news. And the whole room bursted in laughter. The whole room. And eventually, that's what happened.
We've got a serious problem, and it's probably getting worse rather than better, irrespective of the technology, because of all these factors we've been.
But the best thing that I see on this is that I think we have to revert back to this type of thing. We have to get together and educate each other. It's not going to depend on this or that medium. We have to recover our understanding of the world we live in, and we cannot do it by listening to the radio. It's not there.
No, I agree.
It's a very good, we have to form small groups in houses and just discuss these things and teach each other.
I agree. And let me just say, I mentioned the WCFL, Chicago's labor-owned radio station, at the beginning of all of this. And one of the things that was interesting about WCFL is that they sponsored a lot of community events. In fact, they sponsored sort of these annual Labor Day celebrations. They would have these big parties, and WCFL would be there broadcasting the speeches and the festivities and the musical performances. And it really was more of a community institution. Part of that, part of the reason it was a community institution is that individual labor unions that were members of the Chicago Federation of Labor took out subscriptions to the magazine that they produced, which actually generated cash for the radio station. So they actually felt like they had ownership over the radio station. It was this sort of responsive community institution. And in fact, in my research, and I'm actually researching right now a book on the history of Chicago's kind of radical, alternative, and labor media. In my research on the history of Chicago's sort of grassroots, progressive, radical community and ethnic media, the democratic, grassroots, radical media almost always acts as a kind of community institution that brings people together. In the 1960s, there was this underground newspaper here in Chicago, the Chicago Seed. I don't know if any of you guys used to read it. But their offices were like the meeting place for a lot of people on the left, and they were the headquarters for the organizing of the Yippies Festival of Life at the Democratic National Convention. And they had a light table and lots of equipment that they let all sorts of other community progressive and radical groups like the Black Panthers use on a regular basis. So, I think